Hello and welcome to day 4 of the Halloween Craft Countdown, where I'm releasing a new craft project every day for the whole of October. Today's project is one which you don't actually really need a Cricut for, although I am going to do the design in Design Space, and that is these personalised watercolour wall arts. So these are really fun because you can buy this clip art really cheaply, just a couple of dollars, but it comes in loads of different formats. So you get all different colours of hair and style and clothing and ages of children, or you can get it in friend sets rather than family, for example, and then you can put them together so you assemble all the heads and the bodies and the legs, a little bit like making your own little dolls, and then put them together with the names of your family underneath to create personalised wall art to go in your home this fall. So let's find out how to create your very own personalised watercolour wall art. The first thing you'll need to do is choose the graphics that you want to use in your family portrait. As this is the Halloween Craft Countdown, I'm going to do an autumn and fall themed one with some pumpkins. So I'm using these graphics from Creative Fabrica because I pay for their monthly membership, which means I can download all of the images on their site without paying anything else. So if you have the subscription to Creative Fabrica, then this is a good option to go for. But you can also buy these types of graphics on other places like Design Bundles or the Hungry JPEG, Creative Market. There's lots of different places online you can get them. I'll put a link to this exact set in the description of this video. But this designer, if you go and look at their shop, which again I'll put a link to, they have loads of different kinds of graphics. So maybe you prefer kind of witches to be a bit more Halloweeny. They've also got Christmas options and wedding, bridesmaid, holiday, dogs, gyms, everything you can think of they've got in here. And if you don't find in the set you bought that you've got something that quite fits your specific look, you can also download these elements that just have lots of different types of hairstyle or whatever. So you really should be able to find something that perfectly matches your family. So go ahead and find the graphics set you like and download it. And then you'll need to unzip the folder that it comes in, but then we can open up Design Space and start importing our images. So here's Design Space open, and the next thing we need to do is upload all our images. So go to Upload and then choose Upload Image. You can either browse on your computer or drag and drop the files in, and you'll have to do this one at a time, but you can just choose the images that you want and then drag and drop and let go. When you get to this, choose Complex and hit Continue. You don't need to change anything on this screen, so hit Continue again. Make sure you choose Save as a Print Then Cut image because we're going to be printing this out on our computer. So click Save, and then that will go down the bottom into your recently uploaded images, and you'll need to repeat those steps for all of the pictures that you want to use. So for each one you'll probably find you need a couple of separate ones. So normally the head and the body come separated, and that just gives you greater customization because you can choose the body, so the type of colour of the shirt for example, and then you can match the hairstyle to your specific hair. Once you've added in all of the ones you want to use, you can just click all of them and then press Insert Images. It might take a little while to load them all in because we've chosen quite a lot of images, and as they're watercolours they're quite high quality, so Design Space is going to have to think about this a little bit to get them all inserted into our project. So here they all are, and they have come in really big, so we will have to make them smaller. I'm just going to zoom out a bit so I can see them all. And then before I resize them, I want to create an empty rectangle, which is going to be the size that I need for my photo frame. So whatever frame you're planning on making, make sure you measure it and get the exact proportions that you need for when we do our print and cut. So go into Shapes and choose a square. I'm going to drag it over here so we can see, and then I want to tick the padlock so that I can turn it into a rectangle. I'm going to make a 7 by 5 inch photo frame. So my width is 7 and my height is 5. And then I'm going to make this white just so that it's a little bit easier for me to see. So obviously at the moment this is my 5x7 inch, which is going to go in my frame, and all of these pictures are way too big. I want to make them smaller. I'm going to do this all in one go by selecting all the layers apart from my rectangle, so all my print then cut watercolours. Select one in your layers panel, press Ctrl on your keyboard and then choose all of the others. You can then click and drag to resize and it will do them all in proportion. So I just want to make them a suitable size to go on my rectangle. I'm going to click and drag the square or the rectangle all the way to the bottom and then zoom in using the little zoom buttons in the bottom left. And now this is a little bit better. I might still have to change the sizes, but I can start assembling the pictures. So I find the easiest thing to do first is to get all of the bodies into position where you want them to go. So let's have, I think, the dad on the left. And you'll probably have to resize each body individually to get them in the right proportion. So depending on the ages of your children, you might need bigger or smaller pictures. And then the position of the hands on the drawings can help you decide where to put the order of the people. So because the dad's got his hand down there, I think I might do that, although maybe that needs to be a bit bigger because their feet should probably line up along the bottom. So then let's see who can go next. I think probably the mum next, and I'll just hide her hand and make her a little bit shorter than the father. So this is all a little bit trial and error to get it how you want it to appear. But once you've got all your bodies roughly in the position you want them in, then you can start to add in the heads. So again, you'll need to resize each one to get a suitable proportion to match the bodies that you've put on there. So obviously that that head is way too big, so I just need to make it smaller and then position it there. I'm actually going to drag the head on that one below the body in the layers panel because it should be tucked behind that jumper. So let's just move those. That looks better. Okay, let's go for the pink hair. And then finally the dad's head. And again, I want that one below the body and smaller. Okay, so finally I've got the pumpkin, and I'm going to make the mum hold that because that's kind of why her arm is out there, and that's what gives us our full theme to this image. So I'm going to drag that behind her body. Oops. Just move that. If it's not letting you move it, then just drag it above the body layer. Move it where you want it to go and then drag it below again. That's a nice little design space quirk. Okay, so that is roughly where I want it now. I just need to play about with some of the sizing to get it a little bit more realistic. You can also nudge things about with the arrow keys on your keyboard to move them. And if you need to, just zoom in so that you can see a little bit better what you're doing. Okay, so I like how that's looking. But I think I'm going to make them all a bit smaller because I want to put the names underneath. So I'm going to choose all of my watercolour layers and then group them together by pressing group on the top. And now I can click and drag and they're all going to resize at the same rate. It's a little bit slow because it's so many high quality graphics. Design Space is being a little bit laggy. If you want to make sure your graphics are exactly in the middle of your rectangle, you can choose the top of the group and then press Ctrl on your keyboard and choose your square, and then go into Align along the top menu and press Center, and that will perfectly center your group in the middle of your rectangle. And that is a nice effect to do. I think it gives a better look to your finished design if it's slap bang in the middle. It looks more professional. So here we go, here's our little family, and I think I'm going to add some more pumpkins. So with the pumpkin layer, just right click and duplicate, and I'm going to put some just around the floor to kind of fill in these gaps a little bit. It'll make it look a bit more fall themed. And if you want to change the order of the layers, you'll have to ungroup your people. So choose the group, press ungroup, and now you can drag things to where you want them to go. Now I've added in those extra pumpkins, I'll just need to select all my layers again and group them and then center them again, because now I've made this wider with this pumpkin on the left, so it won't be perfectly centered anymore. So let's do that same thing again. And now that's in the middle. Okay, so this is ready for me to add the names to it, but before I do anything else, I'm just going to save my project because I don't want Design Space to crash or anything like that, because I'd lose all my work and I don't want to have to start again. So at the top, I'm going to hit Save, give it a name, and then press Save. Alright, let's add some names. So go into Text and then type out a name. Choose the font by double clicking into your word and then pressing Ctrl and A on your keyboard to select it all, and then in the fonts drop down at the top you can choose a different font. So remember, this is going to be printed, so it can be a really thin pretty script font, and that'll work just fine. If you are using a script font, you'll find that Design Space puts these weird gaps between all the letters when actually they're supposed to be connected. To fix that, right click on the word and press Ungroup. And now in the Layers panel you can see that every single letter is its own layer. So we can drag the letters closer so that they are in the correct position. There we go, and when you're happy with how it's looking, select them all again and press Group. If we were cutting this with vinyl, the word, we'd want to weld the letters together, but because we're printing, we don't actually need to. We can just leave it like that. So I'm going to make it smaller and then add it to my family portrait picture. And I think I'm going to change the colour to a grey rather than black. It will still show it as that black outline around the edge, because at the moment it's still going to try and cut this. We need to turn it into a print and cut at the end, but I think a grey is going to look better because it matches with that watercolour. Okay, so now you can just do the same for all of your different names. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and then jump back in and show you how to flatten this so that you can print it properly. I've done a little bit more work on my design now, so I've added a little pumpkin or gourd which is being held by the boy, because I thought it was a little bit strange how his hand was up but he didn't have anything in it. I've also added the names underneath each of the people, and I have prepared a family name to go along the top. But I need to line this all up neatly. The easiest way to line up a family name is to drag it where you want it to go, and then with that selected, press Ctrl on your keyboard and choose the square on the outside, go into Align and press Center horizontally. and that shifted the name, so it's now perfectly aligned horizontally along the square, so it's going to be perfectly positioned. We can't do that same thing for the names at the bottom because they're all different depending on if your names have descenders, so for example the Y in Jenny, and also some of my first letters are a bit taller than others. But I want them all to line up neatly. And a nice trick for doing that is to go into shapes and choose a square. I'm going to make this a nice bright colour so it's easier to see, and then click the padlock icon and turn it into a rectangle. And then click and drag this down and position it where your names are along the bottom. And now you can just choose each name and drag it down so that your letters line up along that line of the rectangle, and then you know that they're all going to be nicely in position. So I'm judging this based on the small letters. The capital letters is fine if they go underneath a little bit because they're all different sizes, but the main letters in the name, I'm kind of lining them all up along the rectangle, and then you can just click the rectangle and delete it when you're finished. Alright, so I'm generally happy with how this is looking, apart from there's more space at the bottom than the top, so I'm just going to click my square and nudge it up one. And now that spacing's a bit more even, which is just that extra little bit neater. So once again, I'm going to save this and just save it over my other one. I don't want to lose all these changes. This is almost ready for me to print and then cut with my Cricut. But at the moment, what it would do was it would print all of these people and it would try and cut out the names, which is not what I want. So if I click Make It, you'll see at the moment, it's going to print all of my people, but they're not connected. It's going to cut a bit of white, and then it's going to do all the names, and again all those letters are completely separate, so you can see we have got some work to do. I need to select all of my layers by going down in the layers panel and press Shift or Control on your keyboard. Choose all of them, including your square at the background. It's really important that you include this square, and then down the bottom press Flatten. It may take a little while because we've got quite a few layers, but now what this has done is it's turned the whole thing into a print and cut image. So don't worry that you can't see your rectangle around the edge anymore. It is still going to cut there. It's just that outer line's gone invisible. It's also made all of our text nice and pretty. So you can see now it doesn't have the black lines around the edge. We've just got the nice thin script font in the grey that we chose. This is all ready to print, so click Make It. And then don't worry that it's got this black outline here. That's just how the Cricut Print Then Cut works. So it will print this black outline on your paper, but this isn't actually where it's going to cut. It will still cut our 5 by 7 inches square around the family portrait. It's just we can't see that edge, but don't worry, it is still there even though you can't see it. Hit Continue. This is probably going to complain at me because my Cricut's not turned on yet, but the first thing to do is to print it. So click Send to Printer. And then these two steps are very important. One, you want to turn the bleed off. So make sure that little green toggle is off. And then underneath where it says Use System Dialog, we do want to do that. So turn that on. And what this means is it means it's going to give us access to our printer settings so that we can tell it to print at a higher quality than normal. So when you've turned the bleed off and turned Use System Dialog on, then you can click Print and it will load your printer settings. So yours might look a bit different than mine depending on what printer you've got, but on mine I can click into Preferences. And then under media type, I'm going to choose photo paper and then glossy photo paper. And then under print quality, I'm going to change it to high. And that means it's going to print it nice and high quality, the best my printer can do, which is what we want because if we're framing this, we want it to look as good as it possibly can. So then click OK and then print, and go ahead and print this out on your printer. I've printed my design onto glossy photo paper, and now it's ready to add to my Cricut mat. So I've got a light blue mat, which is a light grit mat, and then I'm just going to line this up along the top and left edges of the grid and push it down to make sure it's nicely pressed onto the mat. I don't want to use a scraper tool to push it down like I normally would, because I don't want to scratch any of the ink off. So just push it down gently to make sure you've got a good stick, and then this is ready to follow the next steps and cut out the square around the edge with your Cricut. Looking back at Design Space, I can now follow this through to the next step to feed it into my Cricut. Now if you don't have a Cricut machine at this point, then you can just cut it out by hand. So that's why at the beginning I said you didn't necessarily need a Cricut machine. But if you do have one, then follow it through. So feed your mat into the Cricut machine and then press the load unload button. And then when it's loaded in there, hit that go button. A light will come on, which is how your Cricut is going to work out where it needs to cut. So this light helps it to see where those black lines are around the edge of your print. And it uses these black lines to understand where your print is sitting on your Cricut mat, so it knows where to cut. Once it's gone through and read all of the black registration marks, then the light will go out and it will start to cut. So it's going to cut a 5x7 inch rectangle around the edge, and then when it's finished I can take the mat out of the Cricut machine and then continue assembling my photo frame. So here's my design now. It's been cut with the Cricut and we have to take it off the mat without bending it. So to start with, I'm just going to take off the excess around the edge. And then to take off the main design, rather than pull it off the mat, which could result in it bending. So if you look at this that I just pulled out, I'm not sure if you can see, but it's all kind of bent and rolled. So instead of taking this off the mat, we're going to take the mat off of the artwork. So turn your mat upside down and just gently start bending it back. And you'll see that your design just pops off as you bend. So I'm not folding the mat, I don't want to snap it, but just a gentle bend, and then your artwork will just pop straight off and it's perfectly flat when you get it off the mat. Now when I cut this out, I did it at 5x7 inches because I was going to put it in that sized frame, but since then I found that I actually have a larger one. So I thought I'd put it in this frame, which is 8x10 instead. So what I've done is I've just created a mat which is going to go around the outside so that it'll fit in my new larger frame. And to do this, I just made an 8x10 inch rectangle in Design Space and then sliced out a smaller rectangle from the middle. And then I did the same thing again with the orange card, so that's just a smaller rectangle with one sliced out, cut them, stuck together, and there's my mat. So that's a nice, quick and easy way of adding some extra interest to a print so that it will go in a larger frame, especially when Cricut limits you to the size that you can print then cut. So I need to add this to the back of my mat. So let's line this up, and I've made my mat so that the hole is slightly smaller than the size of this, which means when I put this over, it will overlap a bit so I can stick it on the back. And all I'm going to use is a little bit of sticky tape, because then if I need to I can reposition it and I can change it out if I want to use a different mat in the future just by peeling off the tape. There we go. Right, that's better. So now I'm happy with that. I'll just put a little bit on the sides to stop it coming apart. And then this is ready to go in my frame. Here is my 8x10 inch frame, and all I'm going to do Let's just drop that in there and it will fit perfectly. This is quite a deep frame and it did have a spacer in it, which is like a little bit that goes around the edge, but I couldn't find it, so I've cheated and I've just cut 2 bits of thick cardboard to be a pretend spacer in the back so that the back of the frame will fit on. So I just need to put that in there, check I've got it the right way up, which I do, and then close the little tabs on the back of the frame. And once they're all closed, I can turn it over. And there is my watercolour family portrait for fall, all finished and framed and ready to go on the wall. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Halloween and fall crafts. I'm releasing a new video every day throughout the whole of October, so there'll be loads more inspiration coming up soon. Thank you for watching.